The critics logged on Thursday morning thinking they had a story. They were ready. Talking points loaded. They were going to point at Indian Wells, at the loss to Linda Noskova, at the 6-2, 6-0 scoreline, the worst result of Alex Eala's career. They were going to say she cracked under pressure, that the ranking is a mirage, that she doesn't belong at the very top of this sport. They had the receipts. They had the narrative. They had everything they needed. And then Monday happened. Then Tuesday happened. And by Wednesday, by the time the photos spread across every Filipino WhatsApp group on Earth, by the time the Miami Heat's Instagram exploded, by the time the Broken Rackets red carpet gallery went viral and showed the world exactly who was standing in the most exclusive room at the most glamorous party of the entire tennis calendar, they had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because you cannot write a takedown piece about a girl who just walked into David Grutman's legendary Miami Open Gala, the event Broken Rackets themselves called the Met Gala of tennis, and stood in the same room as Aryna Sabalenka, Matteo Berrettini, Taylor Fritz, Frances Tiafoe, and Caroline Wozniacki. You cannot call her irrelevant when the most celebrated Filipino-American coach in NBA history just went on social media to tell the world she is a powerhouse. You cannot dismiss her when Miami itself, the city, the culture, the courts, the arenas, has claimed her as its own. The party started without the haters. And this is everything they missed. Setting the scene, it is the week of March 16, 2026. The Miami Open is days away from beginning at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida, one of the most glamorous stops on the ADP and WTA calendar, defined by the city's vibrant culture, world-class dining, iconic beaches, and magnetic celebrity appeal. This is not just a tennis tournament. This is 2 weeks of sport and spectacle and South Florida heat wrapped inside one of the most culturally rich cities in America. Every player wants to be here. Every celebrity wants courtside seats. Every brand wants their logo in the frame. And into this world walks Alexandra Eala, world number 29, the 31st seed, the same girl who, 12 months ago, arrived at this exact tournament as a wild card ranked 140th in the world. Within 72 hours of touching down in Miami, she had attended the Met Gala of tennis, visited the home court of an NBA dynasty, and been publicly declared a powerhouse by one of the greatest coaches in professional basketball history. Tell me the last time a 20-year-old tennis player had a week like that. You cannot, because it has never happened before. Monday, Kaseya Center, March 16th, home of the Miami Heat. Eala visited Kaseya Center, where she reunited with Heat head coach Erik Spoelstra, the man who guided Miami to back-to-back NBA titles in 2012 and 2013 alongside LeBron James. 3 championships. 3 rings. The most decorated coach in Miami Heat history. And on this particular Monday, the day Spoelstra notched his 700th career coaching victory as Miami defeated the Charlotte Hornets, he made time for Alex Eala. The Heat documented it. They filmed it, edited it into a feature video, and posted it to their official social media pages with a caption the Filipino internet has not stopped talking about since. Just 2 powerhouses repping the Philippines at the highest level. 2 powerhouses. The word choice is everything. Not 2 rising stars. Not 2 proud Filipinos. Powerhouses. The Miami Heat, one of the most commercially sophisticated sports franchises on the planet, with a social media team that understands the weight of every word they publish, chose that word for an NBA championship coach and a 20-year-old tennis player who hasn't yet won a Grand Slam. Because that is what they are. That is the honest, unvarnished truth. Spoelstra is the first Asian American head coach to win an NBA championship, the first in the entire history of the league. Eala is the first Filipino woman to crack the WTA Top 30, the first to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, the first to defeat a top 5 player as a wild card. 2 Filipinos. Both firsts. Standing in the same arena, on the same day. And the Miami Heat said, "These are our people." Think about what that means to a 17-year-old girl in Quezon City right now, watching this video on her phone, a racket propped against her bedroom wall, dreaming of a future that feels impossibly far away. Think about what it means to see the greatest Filipino-American figure in American professional sports history standing next to the greatest Filipino tennis player who has ever lived, and the biggest basketball franchise in South Florida, calling them both powerhouses. Their story began in 2023, when Eala, just 17 and ranked outside the top 150, attended a Heat game for the very first time. She posed for photos with Spoelstra and star Bam Adebayo. That night happened to coincide with Spoelstra's 600th career win. She was a teenager watching a champion coach reach a milestone, not knowing that 3 years later she would be standing in that same arena as a top 30 professional, preparing for the most important tournament of her career, and the Heat would be building tribute videos around their reunion. 3 years from outside the top 150 to world number 29. From a teenager watching her first NBA game to a professional athlete an NBA franchise uses to market itself. That is not a journey. That is a metamorphosis. Tuesday, the Met Gala of tennis. David Grutman. If you don't know that name, you need to. He is Miami's most powerful hospitality entrepreneur. The man whose venues define South Beach nightlife, whose events set the temperature for the city's entire social calendar, and whose parties are not attended. They are granted. You do not buy a ticket to David Grutman's world. You are invited into it. The guest list he assembled for this year's Miami Open celebration was, by any measure, the most extraordinary gathering of tennis royalty South Florida has ever seen. Aryna Sabalenka, world number 1, defending Miami champion, was there with her fiancé. Grigor Dimitrov was there. Taylor Fritz was there. Frances Tiafoe was there. Matteo Berrettini was there. Paige Lorenz was there. Eva Liss was there. Marta Kostyuk was there. And Caroline Wozniacki, former world number 1, Grand Slam champion, one of the greatest players of her era, was there. This is the room. This is the company. The A-list of professional tennis gathered under one roof in South Beach for the biggest social event of the entire Miami Open calendar. And Alexandra Eala was there, dressed in a chic top paired with classic jeans, standing among the champions and the legends and the most recognizable names in the sport. The evening was captured and shared by Broken Rackets, who described it as the Met Gala of tennis, Miami Nights, curated by David Grutman. The Met Gala of tennis. Let that land for a moment. The most famous, most photographed, most culturally significant fashion event in the world, used as the benchmark for the party that Alex Eala attended this week in Miami. Now, appreciate the poetry of this. 12 months ago, Eala was a wild card ranked 140th. She had no WTA seed, no first-round bye. She arrived at Miami 2025 as a storyline nobody had written yet. The establishment, the same players, coaches, and industry figures inside this very party, looked at her ranking and assigned her small courts and late-night slots, expecting her to fade quietly into the second round. 1 year later, she is at their party, in their room, in their photos, in their world, not as someone who slipped through a side door, as a peer, as a seed, as a top 30 player who has defeated 5 top 10 opponents in the last 12 months, and whose name was the first one every ticket buyer in South Florida searched when the draw was released. The Met Gala of tennis. And Alex Eala was on the guest list. What she's walking into on court, the glamour of the pre-tournament week, does not change the ruthless arithmetic of the WTA ranking system. The 390 points Eala earned from last year's Miami semifinal run are on the line. Her performance here will directly determine whether she holds her top 30 standing or slides back into a tightly packed field just outside it. She is a more complete player than she was 12 months ago. Her serve has improved in placement and variation, earning more free points. Her rally tolerance has grown. Her shot selection is sharper. She is better. Technically, measurably, demonstrably better. But defending points on the WTA Tour is the hardest thing in sport. Every opponent has now spent a year studying the wide left-handed serve, the backhand down the line, the willingness to absorb and redirect. The element of surprise that carried her through Miami 2025 is gone. What she has instead is something more valuable: experience, growth, and the unshakable confidence of a player who already knows she belongs at this level. She opens against 38-year-old German veteran Laura Siegemund, the second oldest player in the top 60, struggling badly for form in 2026, failing to advance past the round of 64 in 5 consecutive tournaments this season. That match is the door. Get through it, and the rematch everyone has been waiting for looms. Swiatek in the round of 32. The woman Eala dismantled 6-2, 7-5 on this exact court 12 months ago. Do you think Swiatek has forgotten? Do you think she hasn't spent hours in practice since Miami 2025 specifically preparing for that left-handed forehand, that cross-court angle, that aggressive baseline game that stripped her of a set and a half in under an hour?
She has.
Absolutely. The rematch, if it happens, will be a completely different match, a tactical war between two elite competitors who now know each other's game at a molecular level. But here is the one variable no amount of practice footage can neutralize. When those lights come on at Hard Rock Stadium and tens of thousands of Filipino fans begin to make noise, when the flags go up, the chants start, and the atmosphere that Jessica Pegula once described as unlike anything she had ever experienced in her home city begins to shake the walls, Eala will feel it in her chest like a second heartbeat. And Swiatek will feel it too, in a very different way. A final word on the critics after Miami 2025, they said it was a fluke. That the wild card draw was favorable. That Swiatek had a bad day. That the Filipino fans were a novelty crowd who would disappear when the results stopped coming. That Eala would fade back through the rankings, and in 6 months, nobody would remember her name. They watched her go to Dubai and defeat the world number 7. They said she got lucky in a tiebreak. They watched her go to Indian Wells and beat Coco Gauff. They said Gauff was injured. They watched her reach a career high of world number 29. They said the ranking was inflated. And this week, while they were composing their next dismissal, while they were polishing their next the real issue with Eala is think peace, she was standing in Casilla Center with Eric Spoelstra. She was walking the red carpet of the Met Gala of tennis. She was photographed alongside world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka and former world number 1 Caroline Wozniacki at the most exclusive event of the entire Miami Open calendar. The Miami Heat said it plainly. Just two powerhouses repping the Philippines at the highest level. Not prospects. Not wild cards. Not lucky stories that happen to go viral. Powerhouses. And the particular, choking, impossible-to-hide discomfort that comes from watching someone you dismissed receive everything you told them they didn't deserve, that is sitting in the critics' throats right now like a stone they cannot swallow. Because you do not get invited to David Grutman's World by accident. You do not get a tribute video from the Miami Heat by accident. You do not get a seeded first round bye at a WTA 1000 tournament by accident. You do not get called a powerhouse by a 3-time NBA championship coach by accident. You get those things by being exactly what Alexandra Eala is. The best Filipino tennis player who has ever lived. The player who walked into Miami as an unknown and walked out as a phenomenon. The player who turned Dubai into a 48% spike in ticket sales, turned Indian Wells into a midnight crowd in the desert, turned the Philippines into a tennis nation with a waiting list for court bookings. The player who made ESPN declare in 2026, Alex Eala isn't just chasing another run. She's proving it wasn't a fluke. World number 29. Seeded. Red carpet walked. NBA powerhouse endorsement secured. And a draw that could put Swiatek in her path before the second week even begins.